we are wired for connection. I wanted to say that when you were speaking.
We are
wired for connection. We're not wired to live in a cave or to live alone. We're wired to be tribal and to have an extended family and community all around us. And we've gotten more and more isolated. And so this is a problem for our well-being. But connected, empowered, and effective communication can help you to feel closer, like you're getting known in the ways you are longing for. We all long for that. And then you can just experience more ease and less work.
Welcome to the Everyday Epigenetics Raw, Real, Relatable podcast. I'm your host, Susan Robbins, epigenetic human performance coach. This is where we discuss all things lifestyle, environment, food, exercise, work, mind, and social interaction as they pertain to epigenetic expression in a way that's relatable to everyone. So if you're ready to start viewing you as an individual, take control of your life and health, and get results, buckle up. Here we go.
Welcome to the Everyday Epigenetics Raw, Real, Relatable podcast. I'm your host, Susan Robbins, and this is the place where we talk about everything lifestyle and environment and how it relates to our genetic expression. So as you guys have known, as a matter of fact, my podcast this week that's out is about identifying toxic relationships versus ones that have just run their course. And as I've spoken about last year in 2024, my top 5 podcasts, 3 out of the 5 were all on relationships and some with toxic people or emotionally unavailable people, and just how the different health types we talk about, how they all differ within relationships and how we can all work better together. People want connection. I keep saying this. I'm like beating a dead horse, but people are starving for real communication, real connection with other humans. You can't even pick up the phone to call somewhere and not get a bot on the other side. I sit there yelling, agent, speak with an agent. We want to hear actual people, have conversations. So nobody even knows how to freaking communicate anymore with a person at the DMV, let alone a partner or a coworker. And I think we're all just really, really craving this at this point, but people just don't know how anymore. We're so disconnected. And so it leads to a lot of issues. And the reason I continue to have things on about relationships is because if we can help, and we all the health types communicate differently. Some are more cerebral based, some are more feeling based, hear tone. We're all very different. And that's because of our genetics, how we're created. And then we have environment, how are we raised, trauma, all of these things come into play and work on how we then communicate or don't communicate, which I think is most of the problem, is the lack of communication, true communication that's out there. And so when I actually connected with my guest last year through a Facebook group with podcasting, and I don't know what happened, but I went back through my list and I was like, geez, I don't know what happened with Robyn. We disconnected because I wanted to get her on here. And so I messaged her and I thought, I'm so sorry. It's been a few months, but are you still open to coming on my podcast? And she's absolutely, this was last week and I had an opening, wanted to get her on here. Her name is Robyn Smith. She's an award-winning speaker and leading trauma, communication, and relationship coach for women. So ladies, listen up. Men, don't tune out, because this might give you a little insight onto the woman in your life, or women. She is the founder of the Rock Your Relationship movement. She's helped thousands transform frustration into fulfillment by cultivating deeper, more conscious and loving connections. With her thriving 23-year marriage as inspiration, Robyn combines practical relationship strategies with emotional healing to create lasting change. We don't want overnight success. We want good, lasting change. She says her approach goes beyond communication, reshaping how women experience love and connection. And as a certified master trauma coach, she specializes in helping clients break free from trauma and unhealthy patterns, which we know can affect their children down the road genetically, something we've talked about on here. So restoring harmony with relationships and within themselves. So, welcome to Everyday Epigenetics. Ms. Robyn Smith. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Susan. Really great to be here. Really enjoying your energy.
Thank you. Empowered communication. This is what this is going to be about. And I asked you before we came on, I said, is this all types of relationships, romantic work? And I loved your answer so much. I said, I'm going to start with this. So, talk to me about empowered communication.
Yes. And so to answer this question, yes, all types of relationships. Our communication matters everywhere, not just at home and with your beloved, but with your obviously your kids, your parents, your family members, your friends, your coworkers, your boss, your people who work for you, your employees, whatever, everyone. The guy who takes out the trash. You know?
Yeah.
So yes, it does cross the lines into all relationships. And that being said, we always get to discern like how much do I choose to share with this person? Do I need to bring this person in closer to my world or not? Again, with that person who's taking out your trash, maybe you're not going to share your fears and desires about what happened with the trash. You know? um, but yeah, you always get to be discerning about this. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So, this is going to be some great information, great tips that are going to be, as you had said when we had spoken prior to starting this, was predominantly for romantic, but yet it'll be great tips for anything because just knowing how to communicate effectively just makes all the difference in the world. So, what is it that's possible when you have empowered communication in your relationships, and why is that so important?
Yeah. So much as possible. I think a lot of us feel limited and like we have a glass ceiling we can't expand beyond that. But what I've discovered in my own life, having again a thriving 23 plus year relationship now, is that keeps getting better. And I had a past relationship where I was engaged and really felt stuck. So things can shift when we do our work. I'm just planting that seed right now. And so what is possible is feeling heard, feeling understood, which these are the two things that people tell me are seeking and longing for the most, and feeling connected, like you've said. And then feeling like your people or your person, if we're talking about a romantic relationship, like you're on the same team. We don't have to always be at odds, starting fights or trying to win the argument or whatever it is. We can feel like we're working through it together. We're collaborating. So that's such a nice feeling. And then feeling like you are being supported, like you matter, and like you're getting closer. And as you've been saying, connection is we are wired for connection. I wanted to say that when you were speaking.
We are.
Wired for connection. We're not wired to live in a cave or to live alone. We're wired to be tribal and to have an extended family and community all around us. And we've gotten more and more isolated. And so this is a problem for our well-being. But connected, empowered, and effective communication can help you to feel closer, like you're getting known in the ways you are longing for. We all long for that. And then you can just experience more ease and less work. I remember in that earlier relationship, it always felt like work, like, you're not hearing me. And I was so frustrated all the time. That's not what I said. Yeah, it was a power struggle and it's exhausting. So it doesn't have to be that when we can come to the table with some skills and some coming from a more heart-centered place as well really helps.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Instead of coming, what I see so much, having been in the single world for, dare I say it, over 16 years, I've had relationships, but divorce, over 16 years was January 9th. And I've seen the gamut of it. And I've seen you have your anxious people that just need someone. And I reformed anxious, now very, very secure. And what a change in the quality of relationships you have when you get to that point. But you have that, or you have so many people have become so avoidant and bitter. And I see this so much. The men too, that definitely see the men. They're like, I don't even know who to be anymore. But the women, I don't need some man. I can do this all on my own. I don't need anybody. I just need my Golden Girls friends. And it's such, and I sit there and go, okay, I'm pretty independent. I was a cop. Like I'm pretty tough, but I need a dude. I want a good guy. Well, luckily I have one, like I said, take a long time. But people are just so bitter, and I don't need anyone. And it's like
Mhm.
it, people, as you said, need people, and I love that where you said I take notes all the time because I love going back where you talk about you can get closer. People think that just because you've been with someone for a long time that you can just drift apart. Communication comes in there. People's goals change, things change, but that you can be in a relationship for 23 years
Mhm.
and literally be thriving, which is fantastic. And yeah, I think just gold so far. So keep going, keep going. Yeah, I just get so sad seeing this bitter anger and
Yeah.
or yeah,
Yeah, and hurt. I think people get hurt and they feel incapable of having healthy relationships. And I wouldn't argue with that working with so many people. I work with couples and women mostly, but that people some people are not incapable, but it doesn't mean they can't learn. But people get scared that they're going to get hurt again. And I think that's a really common reason that people
sure,
stay alone
sure,
and when they don't want to do the work to get the skills and the help that they need to make the changes. And yeah, it's work. And the more trauma we've had, often the more work we have in front of us. So it can be daunting.
absolutely.
And yet the rewards are great. So it's worth
The
it.
payoff
Yes.
outweighs the pain, but you have to go
100%.
through the dark and see the contrast to get to
Mhm.
the light. How do you know the difference between a truly good it's needy today between a really great relationship and one that's really sucks? If you don't put yourself out there, all you know is this sucks.
Yeah.
And to be able to have that open mind and put yourself out there and do the work. And like you said, come from that heart center. And I say, come from that place of love. Love is the highest frequency out there. And when you put yourself out there coming from that place and not a bitter place, I was just going to be another one of these assholes. That's the things I hear. And I'm like, God, that's the
Yeah.
energy out there too. Or,
Yeah.
yeah, what are some of the biggest issues that you see as far as communication with your
Hmm.
clients?
Hmm. Yeah. I'm going to give you my top three because I experienced them myself in my relationship and I see them all the time with clients. And these are, and I'll break them down after I share it, but blame, criticism, and defensiveness. So blame, criticism, defensiveness, and they're all related. But when we're blaming, we're in that pointing the finger, looking for the source of the problem. It's your fault. And why did you this? And you always do that. And so you're trying to name and put the finger on somebody else, usually, or sometimes you do it to yourself. It's all me. I'm the problem. But blaming doesn't get you closer. Basically creates it's going to incite defensiveness and create distance between you. So that's a problem. If you truly want connection, you want to be seen and heard, you're not going to get it by blaming. You might get to feel
Yeah.
you get to feel like you won or you're better than somebody, but you just get more distance from that. And then criticism is like next level from blaming. It's instead of just pointing to someone's behavior, you're more like telling them what a bad person they are in some way. You're an idiot, you're a loser, you're fat, whatever you might say to someone. It's an attack on their character, on their person.
Mhm.
Hurts it, and it's meant to hurt.
Yeah.
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 And you may not realize you've been doing it, but when you name call, all that stuff is really toxic in its own way. And it's just not healthy for your relationship. Again, you're going to get more defensiveness, more distance, maybe a counter attack, you blah, blah, blah. So it's just going to escalate. It's not helping anything. Yeah.
And do you find that that comes a lot from the people who maybe have had more trauma or are just unhappy with themselves and already just
Good question.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
one of those things that they come back with is that
Yeah.
defensiveness.
Yes. So yes, yes, and yes. 2 years. So when
Yeah,
you,
I need
you
to know
know,
one
when you,
question at a time.
when you've had more trauma, then you're less likely to feel good about yourself, right? Those two often go hand in hand. And so when you don't feel good about yourself, you may be looking to bring somebody else down so you can feel
Mm,
better about yourself unconsciously, most likely. I know I used to do that. You're comparing. Yeah. And then we're trained in our culture to communicate with all of this. Blame, criticism, and defensiveness is not only very often in our household, so we learn it from those who we've grown up with, but we see it in the culture, on the TV, everywhere as well. So there's not a lot of great examples of healthy communication and a lot of this unhealthy. And so that's why I think it happens too. We just don't know any different. Taught any skills early on. We're not taught how to take responsibility and own our part and be humble and be apologetic. Some people are overly apologetic and humble, and that's
Oh, yeah.
that's their
Pleasers.
the coin. But
Yeah.
yeah. But where's that middle ground where you just take responsibility for your actions, your mistakes, and you apologize when needed, and you also know how to stand up for yourself. So there needs to be a good balance in there. Yeah. And the defensiveness is when sometimes you defend even when you're not getting blamed or criticized. So that's a problem. It's understandable if you are getting blamed or criticized, and the knee-jerk reaction is to defend yourself. Like, that's an attack. I need to
Fight or flight.
I
Fight or fight.
yeah, but sometimes people are just uber defensive already. And that's often because they have been attacked a lot. They have been criticized a lot in the past. So even if you said something like you left your cup on the counter, or they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing it. And they're going to overreact because they feel like they take everything as so personal or like a criticism because they're already defended. They're looking
Right.
at the next attack and they're ready to
Yeah.
fight. And so,
Right.
yeah, that has to be addressed.
Yeah, I think you'll hear sometimes I just can't do anything right.
Yes.
And, oh my God, that's exhausting. It gets
Yeah.
exhausting for the other person unless they've been the one that's been beating them down. I don't like using the narcissist term that's just thrown out there. That's it's not everybody, or the gaslight terms. But there are people out there that truly are that
Yep.
way. And I was married to one a couple
Mhm.
decades ago for a very short period of time, thank God. But there's other people in these relationships
You?
that a long time, and it's like you lose sense of yourself because you think you are literally going crazy. So it creates this, I can't do anything right because everything has been wrong and it's been all my fault. So it's
Mhm.
that, like you said, that apologizing all the time, or the super defensive as soon as it happens. Well, you can't do it anyway. Or
Yeah.
it totally makes sense. What gets in the way of empower?
Mhm.
What are the big obstacles that you
Mhm.
see that get in the way of all of this? Of having
Yeah.
healthy communication.
Yeah. Well, that's we touched on it, but I'm going to point to trauma again because that is the kind of the lens that I look through. And just briefly, like when we have a lot of childhood trauma, and I don't mean it has to be abuse or assault or something, but
No.
it can just be like my experience where my parents got divorced before I turned 3 years old. My parents went on a trip for 2 weeks when I was 6 months old. So there's a break in the attachment bond. And there was, my mother was emotionally unavailable. I lost my father for just at least for that period. And so there's what a child does with that is they make it about me. So then, even if I don't have words yet, it's, oh, there must be something wrong with me. So it creates a sense of a lack of self worth and a sense of an insecurity or a lack of lovability. And so when we have that experience, which like all sorts of stuff can happen, right? Your parent can be in the hospital; they didn't do anything to you, but if they're away from you, you're missing them. You're feeling like, what is it about me?
What is it about me? Yeah.
So kids are narcissistic. They are self-centered completely. They don't get that your parents have a life outside of you. And so they take everything really personally, which is sad, but that's just how it goes. So that's going to affect then how you show up in your adult relationships. If you have a lot of breaks in your early attachment bonding, or a lot of sense of there's something wrong with me, or I'm not good enough for whatever reason that occurred, or you were outright beaten or punished too much, or it's just easy to have a lens of I have to protect myself, or I have to prove my worth, or I have to be nice so that people like me, or we then overcompensate in various ways as what we call a survival strategy to get through the hurt, the pain of what happened. And then we have these then unhealthy patterns that we just carry forward into relationship after relationship. So they
Yeah.
usually, and it usually starts in childhood, and you're doing it to just get through. But then that becomes like your view of yourself in the world, and so that's how you approach life. And so if you're like scared you're going to get hurt, you're not going to take risks, like we were talking about before. Or if you're trying to prove maybe your strategy is the opposite, you're going to be like overly compensating about I can do everything and I'm tough and I got this and I'm beautiful and I'm strong and I'm going to prove to the world how great I am. Then you're going to approach relationships differently. Nutshell to say that a lot of why we have these communication challenges are driven by these patterns, not only from hearing how others communicated. There was a ton of blame in my household. Who left the lights on? Who didn't put the food away? Blah, blah. So you learn it by modeling, and then you learn it, or you adopt a strategy, and the communication is part of that. How you show up based on your sense of identity in the world.
Yeah. And again, this, for those of you that are parents with younger children now, this is super important because this is affecting that childhood trauma. And I just talked about this in another one just recorded, which was interesting. It was earlier this week, and it was on healthy co-parenting.
Great. Yeah.
And it was a male, and he
Good.
was saying it's that he realized that it's the blame and these things that we say due to
Mm.
our insecurities in
Mm.
front of our children.
Mm.
That's traumatic. You have the traumatic of a breakup. Your familial unit has broken up. That's traumatic right there. And then when you have parents that, due to their own issues that might have stemmed from childhood, or which he said his did, it's just the back and forth. It's like pit viper versus pit viper. And it's in front of the kids. And he said he looked over and his 3-year-old was crying the one day watching this.
Mhm.
So what do you think that's doing to the genetics, or the expression of these genes for this child and
Mhm.
their kids to come?
Yeah.
So the generational trauma, you can bring it if you don't nip it in the bud. So putting this information out here I think even we're going to talk about tips that you're going to share, but the awareness of God, like when I was married 3 times. I don't put that out there. I just lost my mom at a young age. And then it was kind of like, so from there, had to be all protective. I became a cop, right? Had to become always the tough girl. And that's how people would always describe me, as the little tough chick. I'm like, you don't know what's inside. It's not, this is the exterior shell that very few would get to see because you have that protective, but yet the attachment was very anxious. So you talk about trying to put those two together was a really tough dynamic. And I said, okay, I'm the common denominator in all 3 of those marriages. So if this conversation can spark that awareness in people that, like I said, even like older people, great. It is never too late to have this awareness. I was late 40s, like never, ever too late. But so important if you have kids.
Yeah.
To really learn this, because this is what you are teaching them, as you said. What are you teaching them is healthy, and what they're going to see is quote normal. What do we? It's normal anymore, but that's why I think this was it's such an important conversation to have. Awareness is the key, because technology, everything else, we've become those bots that are on the other line. Right? Like just literally like roboting through life. But then what I see with my clients, and I'm sure you do with yours, when the light bulb starts coming on of awareness, oh my God, it's like they become unstoppable. Everything starts changing. I'll get text messages. I've had this epiphany. And it's around a lot of this type of stuff. And then learning to be authentic, not who they have become due to how it started.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. And if you want authentic relationships, you have to bring your authenticity. You can't do it with a mask on.
No. And it's just too many people have the masks on. But boy, how liberating it is to take that mask and throw it into the wind and go, bye. This is me.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it, to find that place of love.
Scary for people too, because that's all they've known. They've hidden behind that. And they think, okay, if I don't have this, then how can I be liked and loved? But you have to learn that you cannot have that and also be liked and loved. Maybe not by the same people because they like and love your mask, but you might find new people who really like and love who you truly are. And that's where you go, this
Yeah.
is what I've been waiting for, the real connection.
What do you see with people, with your clients? Or you also said you work with couple. I love working with couples.
Mm,
Again, when people get awareness together, oh, it's just,
I know.
um, but what do you see when people start getting these aha moments?
Oh, it's humbling often. Ouch. Oh, I did that. Oh, that hurts. So there's that, and some sadness can come through about the loss, the grief that maybe hasn't been felt for what happened. So I think that's really important, an important part of the process. Maybe some anger comes through for the betrayals or the hurts that they have been put on them. And but yes, and then there's relief too as they move through that. There's great relief. I think you said like the weight comes off, just feeling lighter, feeling more at ease. I just talked to a client the other day who's been working with me for a while, and she's like, I am a completely different person now. I can speak my mind. I don't care what people think. Before, she was incredibly nervous and always trying to calculate, okay, if I say this, what are they going to say? And how can I make it so I don't say the wrong thing so they don't hurt me? And it was just exhausting. And she was ill. And now she's not ill anymore, and
Oh, yeah.
this affects your health. Like your anxiety is directly related to your health and your mental
Oh,
and physical health.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
a lot can change when we when we do the healing work, when we do the inner work that is so important
Mhm.
in order to thrive in life. For most of us, some people get a better hand dealt than others and have less of that to do. But I think we all have some
We all have some.
yeah.
Yeah. And I used to say this all the time when someone says, I've done the work. If you think you're done, you're
Yeah.
not. It never truly stops. There's always more
Yeah.
you can do
Mhm.
to continue to be your best self and increase your quality of life. And if you think going through one course or just listening to one podcast, oh, I did the work, I'm done. Now you hear it, you're like, but you're still angry. You're still bitter. You're still anxious. You
Yeah.
you haven't completed the work, and it's a lifelong journey. But it takes you wherever you start as you go, it takes you to different levels.
Mhm.
And I'm not even the same person I was 2 years ago.
Mhm.
You really see, and I'm sure in a marriage 23 years that's thriving, you've had your ups and downs, but you guys are in a different place than you were 2 years
Mhm.
ago, individually and as a couple, because you
Mhm.
continue to put the work into it. And people, I think the word or the feeling around work is like, ugh,
Or yeah.
as opposed to I get to take the opportunity to make myself better so that I can be more present in my relationship and have a thriving relationship as opposed to a dying dying relationship.
Yeah.
So what are some communication tips that you can share with the listeners today that can help them to move forward or create some of this awareness to get them moving? That'd be
You
awesome.
bet. Yeah, I'm gonna give you some 3 tips. A couple of them are more like set the foundation for a healthy conversation. So and they might seem obvious, but they're not to everybody. So this is key. 1, eye contact. Especially in this day and age when you're talking, "I hear you, yeah, I got what you said,"
Oh, it's
at your phone.
this. Mhm.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. You look at dinner. If you go out to eat,
I know. People on phones, all around the dinner tables. Yeah. So it's a lost art, and it's important if you wanna feel you're being heard and seen and understood, this eye contact, and what often comes with that, like you're doing now, is you're nodding your head. We mirror each other, so there's a lot of communication that happens without the words, and we miss that when we're not making eye contact or when we're just texting and we're doing emails. We miss a lot of the nuance, and it's a gift to have eye contact, and then if you don't give it, you're missing out and you're hurting the connection. So we can all practice that, I think. And I have
so
this thing with my husband sometimes. We may be walking away while talking, and it's fine if like you're saying, yes, I'll get the broccoli from the market or whatever. But it's different if you're saying, hey, we got to talk about this thing and you're leaving the room. If you want to
So
talk,
dismissive.
sit down in front of me, like I need to talk like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to
Yeah.
yell conversation to you. So,
Yeah.
you
Plus,
can ask.
it's undivided attention.
Yeah. We
We're
all
so
deserve that.
divided.
Yeah.
With attention spans. That totally makes sense. So
Yeah. And where our attention spans have gotten shorter, and there's like proof around that. So yeah, making that time. And also just a little caveat that some people have a really hard time with eye contact, and that's usually because of really early trauma. And so they might have to look around a lot. And so we need to not take that personally too. But we can address it like, hey, I'd love to be able to make eye contact with you, or is that uncomfortable for you? Or it's or if that's your issue, like you can talk about that. Like it's hard for me to make contact, just so it's in the room, and because when I know when I've talked to people who cannot give straight eye contact, I'm not saying you have to stare at 100%.
that's uncomfortable too.
No, you're not trying to do it 100%, but like I'm looking down right now to gather my thoughts. But if you cannot ever make eye contact or you're nervous about it, it's good to presence them. And I say to you, if you're that person and you're listening, that it can get easier as you work with your nervous system and you work with your trauma and whatnot. You'll be able to feel more relaxed in these types of conversations that might to you feel really intense to make eye contact. So just putting that there.
And also, if you can give that person a safe space to bring it up and not say, why can't you make eye contact with me? There again is the attacking. But if you say, I noticed that you have a hard time with eye contact and I love looking at your eyes. Help me work with this because I want to help connect. Where do you think that's coming from? Or just give them that space where they feel safe to be able to, and like you were talking about not consciously understanding it. So they may not even realize that they don't have eye contact. And I experienced that with a friend years ago. And I said, you like, hello. And I did it in a joking way. And they're like, I realize that I'm looking around all the time. So again, that awareness we can help bring to somebody, but come from that place here, not
the blame, not the attack, just a curiosity.
Yeah. And with your nonverbal.
Yeah.
Not this, but hey. Yeah, I love that tip. Okay.
So that's one. Next one, consent. So consent is great for when you want to have an important conversation, and you want to when you want to have an important conversation, you want the eye contact, you want someone's undivided attention, like we just talked about. So you don't want to spring it on someone like, hey, you have to sit down right now and have this conversation when someone's just, maybe they're walking in from a hard day at work and they're like exhausted, or maybe maybe they're super frustrated about something and you can't expect them to be 100% present for you. So you ask them, hey, like, I want this conversation with you. When can we sit down to talk about this? When you're available emotionally, you're available physically, mentally, your mind's not somewhere else. You're not starving. You can focus because you're not hungry or whatever, or exhausted. So you just ask for that and you make it happen for both of you. Like, when can we both be mostly present for this conversation? So that's the consent. Is this a good time to talk? If not, when? Not when someone's driving, not when someone's cooking with knives, but like sitting down face to face, like create a window. Okay, 30 minutes. Here's
Yeah.
we're gonna do this thing. So,
and I have a question for you here, because we want to ask for the consent. And I think the one sentence that sends people into stress mode is, we need to talk. It's like, that's a, oh God.
no, yeah, that has a heaviness. Yeah.
Oh, this isn't going to be good. The initial reaction.
Yeah.
What would you give as a good tip?
Yeah.
A better way to approach that than, we need to talk.
Yeah. We need to talk implies that you did something wrong. So I would say, I really want to talk about this issue or this situation or this thing that's going on. It's important to me. And I'd love to have a really present conversation with you. like that. So make it about me and not about you or we, but just this is what I need and want, and I'm asking for it.
And identify what you would like to talk about as opposed to this big mystery.
Yeah, probably it's better because people start making all sorts of stories up and getting nervous about it. But yeah,
Fair.
y- yep, yeah, and then hopefully you'll schedule it sooner than later if it's something.
Yeah, yeah. And ask for that. Like you said, let them know that this is super important to me. And so I'd love to come up with a time that we can have a chat about this just because it's making me feel off or something, as opposed to me. Yeah, we need to talk, or when can you talk? Oh, that just like my heart rate goes. Oh,
Yeah, what did I do wrong? Yeah,
I'm in
yeah,
trouble. That's the
mhm,
first thing you think.
yeah.
Okay,
Right.
keep going. What's another one?
Three, yes. Number three, reflective listening. So this is so good, and we're doing it here a little bit. So someone says something, and you reflect back on, oh yeah, I like that point, and this is what I want to add to it, or just, oh yeah, I really hear this is what you're saying. So it doesn't have to be verbatim. You repeat everything they said, but just so they have a sense, like, okay, you're following me, because so often people don't know how to do that,
Mhm.
and they completely take the conversation somewhere else. Oh, you like tennis? I had this great tennis experience and blah, blah, blah. And now it's all about me. And the other person's going, did you even hear anything I said? So this is an important part of creating connection is, again, people want to be seen, heard, and understood. So the heard part is and understood is about really getting that I'm being heard right now. You're modeling nodding right now. And I hear you watching you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That you're listening. So just like that, it doesn't have to be hard. It can be nonverbal and also can be verbally like, yeah, I get your point. This is what you're saying. So they're like, yes. And when you do that for someone, they go, ah, you got me. Or they can say, actually, that's not what I meant. Let me clarify
Clarify it.
so that we can be on the same page here. Because it's the worst thing when someone completely misunderstands you and then starts reacting to it. Yeah.
Because we all have different perceptions because
Yeah.
of who we are, where we've come from. So I love that idea of repeating that, just repeating some of it back. Say, okay, this is I if I understand, I do this a lot with clients.
Yep.
If I'm hearing, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing from you.
Great.
And sometimes they're like, yeah, spot on. And other times, no, like, let me reiterate what I'm saying in a way that you can understand better. Because we all come from perceptions that are different. And you don't want somebody taking it the wrong way. How many,
Yeah.
especially text messages, how many relationships and on text? You
So
can't
sad.
get inflection. You can't get, who knows what's been a typo or when someone's saying ocean, being the crazy person typing on the other end out of anger or fear or whatever's coming through. And just repeating that back and like you said, like giving that validation that I hear you. And
Mhm.
that's not the time to bring your own stuff into it. Like you said, of talk about your own story. And I talked about this openly last year in a trauma. No, it was a trauma and epigenetics, talking about trauma bonding. It's all this me too. Let me bond with you.
Mhm.
But when someone is talking about a traumatic event, and I brought this up with two women that I thought was very safe, and I'd never talked about it before. And I said, I've never told a living soul this in my entire life, but this happened to me after this concert. And it was like they tried to one up me.
Uh-huh.
It's and I sat there, I was driving. We were coming back from a concert, and I sat there. I prefaced this with I've never told another living soul this. And it was like, yeah, but my story's better. There was no, we have to be able to cut our crap off and just listen. And and I don't know about you. I have definitely noticed this with clients or just in friend relationships or whatever. And so with some of my great friends, sometimes it happens. You catch somebody, you're having a conversation, everybody's multitasking. But sometimes you look, if you're having a one-on-one and you see them like all they're doing is trying to think of what they want to say. And you're like, you're not taking in any of what I'm hearing. And I see it because you're now sometimes I get excited. As you see, I'm very excitable and I don't want to forget. This is why as you are talking, I'm
Yeah.
jotting things down because I don't want to forget because it's such a great point that I want to bring it back up again. But with when you're sitting in a heartfelt conversation and you just feel like this person's just waiting to come back at you, as
Mhm.
opposed to just
Yeah.
hear me and feel me.
Yeah. It's like that being receptive, right? Just receive right now. This is not your job to win or to prove something. Just let yourself open and take it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's hard for some people. So yeah, and that's why I bring it up as a point I want more people to get, because it's like we're both saying it's really common,
Yeah.
and so people feel missed. Wow, you just didn't get me. And
And
then
it's a missed connection right
yeah,
there. It's a missed chance you had to hold somebody
yeah.
in a very loving way, regardless. It could be a stranger. I've had people that are like, you're so easy to open up to. And I'm a hiking trail there and telling me stuff. And I'm just like, wow, we all have a story. And I can talk all day long, but sometimes you just, when you stop, just listen to what other people have to say. And
Mhm.
it can enrich you in ways, instead of having to just think of, we have some common things, which is fun when you can bond with somebody over common things. But other times it's just really great to just listen to what someone else has to say. And it might spark something in you that you didn't realize was there. And when you said these tips, that probably everybody knows them, but maybe some don't. Again, I think there are things that we should instinctively know,
Hmm.
but people forget about, or it's, you don't realize that you're doing it. You might notice it in other people, but not
Yeah.
in yourself.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Uh,
And it takes a while to really get this in your system when you've got an old pattern. Like I said, I was brought up blaming, so I was a blamer, and I still find it happening once in a while, but I've come a long way.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be perfect.
You do. Yeah. Yeah. So,
When you catch
we're just
yourself
like,
before you wreck.
yeah.
Okay, fantastic conversation. There's going to be some people that may want to speak with you. How
Mhm.
would they, or follow you? Because I'm sure you've got more gems, and you had told me that you've got some freebies out there. So, what
Yeah.
is the best way? And people just know that if you're driving, listening to this, you don't have to jot it down. It'll be all in the show notes. We'll have every way to reach Robyn, to follow her, get her freebies. But for those of you that want to jot this down, tell us, how's the
Yeah.
best way to follow, contact, work with you?
Great.
Go for it.
Yeah. Easiest would be my website, robynsmith.net, Robyn with a Y. But what I have coming up, if you're listening when the sort of window after this episode comes out, is my free connection code communication training. And it is for women. And it's several days of about an hour a day. We start off with 4 days, and then I have a couple bonus sessions, but 4 days of an hour a day of solid communication skills, not the ones I've given here, different ones that are like how to say this and why. So people leave that with a ton of skills, and just like things are already shifting in their relationships from that. So I highly recommend the connection code communication training, and we'll have the link below.
When
Um,
does that start? 'Cause you said
that's
it's coming up pretty quick.
yeah. So if you're listening soon, it's March 17th, 2025. Yeah. And I sometimes do it more than once, but that's all I got right now on the calendar. So check that out. If you miss it, you'll see the option to download my Connection Cure communication checklist. So I'm all about the C's. And Cure communication checklist is a great simple guide. It takes about 2 minutes to go through it, and you're going to get 10 keys for 10 things to look at in your own communication. And if you're not able to check yes, I do that, then you'll see a tip below for what to do instead. So this is a really helpful toolkit there. And then I have my YouTube channel where I have a ton of videos where I'm giving relationship tips and trauma tips all the time. We'll have that link for you. And I believe it's Robyn Smith, trauma and relationship coach, something like that.
Love
Um,
it.
yeah.
So many ways people can follow you, work with you, get tips, and
Yeah.
take actionable action. All that action. Taking
Yeah.
actionable
Yeah.
steps
Yeah.
to better themselves and their relationships.
That's right. Yeah. So if you can do the free training, that's a ton of value for that. A ton of value.
And it starts March 17th. Isn't that St. Patrick's Day? So ditch
Oh, you
the booze.
yes. I'm in green. Yeah. It's
Ditch
all
the booze, right? Wear some green, but ditch the booze that day and the partying, which never leads to good relationships, which I saw plenty of that. as a cop, right? You very rarely went on domestic that didn't have alcohol or drugs of some sort involved there. Leads to worse communication. Everything comes out from the inside.
Oh, yeah.
You're putting it down. So put away the partying for the night and better yourself.
Yeah.
Make things a little bit easier for you.
1 hour. That's all you need.
Yep. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I think this is going to help people get some better tips how to have these better relationships. So maybe they won't need as much of the advice on when things are really so bad that it's disruptive.
Yeah. Let's not get there to the so bad place. Yeah.
At least you don't be the cause of it.
Yeah.
Take control. So thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, please share this with anybody, everybody, because we all need these tips today. And it may just make a difference with somebody so get out there, make it a great day, and be your most authentic selves. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for tuning into my podcast. If you enjoyed this week's episode, I'd love for you to share it with someone who would find the information useful. Also, if you can leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, it'll help the information get out to others. You can check out my podcast site and sign up for my newsletter for updates and upcoming shows, and that link is in the show notes below. And go make it a great day and let your authentic self shine.